Something's happening. Oh, I'm live. It's working. You don't know how hard I've tried to make it work. I felt brave today, so I decided to go live. And it's a big step for me. I've never been live before. And it sort of feels like inviting people into my living room. I don't know who will show up. But it took me more than an hour to get the technique going. So I was a bit surprised when it finally clicked and I'm live. And this was not planned. I just wanted to do this to check the technique, but I do have a topic planned. But I don't know if anyone will join me for the actual live. I'm sort of hoping that there will be some viewers so that we will have a discussion. But at the same time, just me talking to the camera is what I have been feeling comfortable with so far. So let's do it and see what happens. So the topic is daring to speak about abuse and about toxic relationship and narcissistic abuse, whatever you wanted to call it, really. I think it's the same barriers that block survivors from speaking out, but the more toxic and the more manipulative the relationship has been, and the longer it has gone on, then there will have been more barriers built up. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Emma, and well, I'm a woman who was raised in a narcissistic family system. And then at 15, I met a man who he was a bit older than me, but he would become my husband. So I was in this relationship for 21 years. And I didn't realize that it was abusive. I didn't realize that I was raised in a toxic family dynamic, actually, until in my adulthood. And I didn't realize that my partner and in later years, my husband and the father of my children were abusing me. It took 14 years from we first met until he actually punched me the first time. And by then, we had 2 kids. The youngest was not even a year. And they were sleeping in the bedroom when this fight happened that escalated very quickly to violence. So I was a young mom, 29, yes, 29 years old. I did have a degree, so I actually have 2 degrees. So master in pharmacology degree, and then my medical doctor. In Sweden, the system is a bit different, so you get first just the degree, and then you do sort of a basic training for 2 years, and then you get your license. So I was out of med school. I had finished that, but I was actually pregnant last semester in med school, so I didn't start to work as a junior doctor. Instead, I went on maternity leave, and that was my husband's suggestion. So he told me that it was a good time. I wanted to have kids, and he knew that, but the planning of it was actually his suggestion. So, and I didn't think a lot about it because I really, really trusted him and loved him. And in hindsight, that sounds naive, but the relationship wasn't completely bad, or let's say there were like every now and then there were a few heated fights or things that he said that was hurtful, and he would sometimes act selfish, but the majority of the relationship was quite good, I thought. um, he would dote on me, and we would travel. So we traveled a lot, traveled in Europe. He was successful as a business owner in those years, and I thought that he really loved me. And I of course loved him. He was my first real boyfriend, and I was sort of crazily in love with him for many years. So I didn't really want to look at those minor instances where he did treat me badly, in words. He treated me badly in words sometimes, or we had arguments, and he would overreact. Instead, I just looked at my own behavior and vowed to do better. But in this process, and especially so let's rewind a bit. But when he actually hit me the first time, I was a young mother. I had become a bit isolated because I had now 2 kids, and I was caring for them, and my husband was out of work. He had sold his company, and then we were sort of living on. Let's see. No, that was a male. There is no one coming. No one is coming to join me. Not yet, anyway. Perhaps someone will see it and be happy to come and join me for a chat. So, yeah, I was dependent on him financially. I had like a small maternity leave sum, but like it was equal to $500, perhaps $600, depending on like the exchange rates, and that wouldn't even cover rent. So, and also I was confused because it felt like it came out of the blue, and I was in shock. So actually, for a few weeks, like I couldn't even process what happened. And as of like, I think we did talk a bit about it. Like he promised me that he would never do it again, and he didn't for a few years. Hit me, that is. But things became worse between us. But so, anyways, I felt stuck with him, but I also was. I did love him, and we were having at this point troubles. And he was withdrawing. He blamed he said that he was going through some sort of crisis or depression, and it was hard for him to be unemployed, but at the same time he didn't do anything to fix it. And I noticed that he started to lie to me, and he actually what led up to this huge fight and this blow up with the abuse was that he left for like he disappeared for a few days and didn't tell me where he was. I discovered that he wasn't where he had said that he would be, and then I never got an explanation, and that made me not trust him, obviously. And it also created a lot of anxiety in me. So it made me start to doubt, like, what is happening? Why would he do that? Why would he lie to me? It didn't fit with the image I had of him. But let's see. Let's talk about the topic. It's a bit harder actually to keep track of the topic when I'm going live, because I'm a bit distracted by the fact that I'm sending right into the camera, and I'm also trying to watch the chat to see if there is someone coming. Let's see. Oh, there's one. Is there one person here? Hi. Or perhaps that's me. I don't know. I don't. This is new to me. But it says that there is one person in the live chat. Perhaps that's me. Hi, Emma. Now there's 0. No, there was a person here, but I was stupid and they left. Okay. Oh, now they're back. Now there's someone here. Hi. Okay, so the topic for the live stream was to talk about, to dare to speak about abuse and to open up. So for me, when I first really opened up about having been abused or having been treated badly, it was, I had been with my husband. I had been in that relationship for 21 years when I managed to separate or to leave him. And before I left, it had escalated, so it was really bad. He had actually tried to end my life twice, and things had become really, really bad between us, and he treated me horribly. Like, I was working at this time full time. So I started to work when my youngest was 2, and then I worked full time as a doctor, like first as a junior doctor, and then I did a basic training, which is actually work, but you're doing rotations. So I would work at the hospitals, and it was very, very stressful. So I was dealing with burnout. He was withdrawing. He was going on vacations by himself, and verbally abusing me. And I was not speaking to anyone about this. So because I had decided to, I made the decision, like after we went through a period which started when my daughter was born. 3 months after, he went away on this trip. I didn't know where he was. I lost trust in him, and then we had, like, I insisted that we would talk about it again and again and again, because I didn't know how to move on with the relationship if I didn't trust him. And he withdrew and became irritated and lied, and then it was more and more, increasingly more angry outbursts. And then this ended in this episode where he physically abused me. And after that, there was a period of, well, first there was this period of me being numb for weeks. And then starting like trying to find a different way to interact. So I thought that we have these huge fights that escalate, and we are not able to talk with each other, and that is not only because of him, it's also because of me. And he blamed me. He said that, like, you always bring things up and you won't let things go. Now here we go again. You want to fight again, and you're irritating me, and like you do things on purpose to make me lose my temper. And I have an anger management problem. So he said that like I know that I have an issue with my anger, and that I don't handle it very well. And I've been like that since I was a young kid. And so you need to help me by, like, if I lose my temper, not escalate the situation and let me calm down. So I interpreted that as him being like honest or taking accountability. Well, in reality, he wasn't. So he was actually making an excuse for himself, and then making the responsibility to keep the peace on me. But I didn't understand these dynamics, these manipulation dynamics. And also, anger was something that I had dealt with since I was a young girl. My mother had horrific rage fits, and anger was something that really scared me. So I did a lot of things to try to avoid his anger, but that made me become like his partner in crime, sort of. He acted poorly, and I tried to adjust, but I also, like, it became almost like it was my responsibility to protect him, to make sure that he didn't get that angry, and to be understanding, but also outwardly. He often spoke about, like, we are a team and we need to, like, we have a good connection, we love each other, and we have something special going on. And other people have like relationship problems. He would often point at, like, they have a problem and they are fighting and arguing, and like, we don't do that. We used to not do that, let's say. And I was very used to try to keep the peace. Like, already from before we met, I was conflict avoidant. I didn't like conflict. I found it very distressing. And when the fights started to escalate, they made me very, very anxious. And I did have some abandonment fear. So I would sort of, like, cry and apologize. And then I would cling to him, like, don't go, we need to talk about this. Like, why is this happening? Why are we fighting? We love each other. And then I would cling to him, like, please just stay and don't go, don't leave me. So I thought that behavior in me that I wasn't able to control, that was causing this, like, that was part of this unhealthy dynamic. So he had an anger management problem, and I have a, like, abandonment fear. So I wouldn't allow him to have some space and to calm down. So I read about, like, and I was also reading a lot about child rearing, like how do you raise healthy kids? Because now, when I had my own, I realized that I don't want to raise them like my mother treated me. So I don't want to be harsh and angry and yell at them. So I was reading a lot, and I was reading about anger management and about how you should, like when you have a kid who has problems with anger, then you need to like interact with them without escalating. So I was trying out a few of these methods, and I would try them with my husband as well, and initially they seemed to be working, but our relationship went downhill slowly, like it was up and down, like it's usually in the abusive relationships. It's the cycle, it's the tense phase, and then there is a blow up, or things escalate to a new low, and then they shift back, so they become sweet again. And I was completely like, I was unaware of this pattern. So, but before I left, things had gotten so bad that my husband would ignore me. Like I would work full days. And in Sweden, that's 40-hour weeks, 40 hours a week, so 8 hours a day, including a lunch. So it becomes 9 hours. But my job was stressful, and I would be the one who would drop the kids off at school, and then I would go to work. Then I would come home, and I prepared all the meals on Sunday. Like every Sunday, I would do cook, and so the meals would be finished. But then I would like prepare. He wanted it a special way, and he wouldn't even be at home when we got home. So I was functioning like a single mom, sort of. There has been some attention lately about the married single mothers, as they call it, but I was one of them, and like handling everything by myself, and also like it was worse than being a single mom, because I had like how did it happen? It happened very slowly, but slowly things was added to my responsibilities. So I always was the one, like before we had the kids, I was the one who was cooking and cleaning. But at that point, he was having his business, so he was working a lot. And I was going to university at that time, so I had more free time, because you have free times to study, and I liked to cook. That's like, for me, it's a bit of a creative process. So I like to try food from different places, and I also have a disorder, and it's like inability to follow recipe disorder. Anyway, so after we had the kids and I was staying at home, and he was depressed and looking for work, I was still like taking on all the responsibilities, and I didn't want to burden him, and he was completely like navel gazing and self-absorbed, and that just like kept going. And it was very, very manipulative. In hindsight, I do see that. So when I first applied for my first job as a junior doctor, we had a talk, and he told me that, well, I'm thinking now about perhaps starting my company. And then I said, well, if you start another company, I won't be able to work full time, because I can't take care of the kids and work full time at the same time. That would be too much for me. And also I don't want my kids to go to daycare for that long hours. And then he said, well, in that case, I will postpone the buying of another company or starting another company, and I will support you. So I will take care. First, he said that he would take care of the kids, and they would only go for a few hours daycare. But then that increased, but like very slowly. It increased the hours, and he wasn't able to do anything with them, so we had to increase the hours. But then he would still pick them up and drop them off. And then he tricked me into buying an apartment, like a very expensive apartment in the town that we lived. But then he suggested, like, well, now you get your license, so perhaps we should move to another town. It will be closer to your father and your sisters, and we will have some help perhaps sometimes with them watching the kids, and we could do something together, like we never have any time together. And he was very, very sweet during this time, until everything was finished. Like I signed a loan and bought the apartment and moved. And then it turns out that he wasn't moving with us, like he was staying and renovating the apartment, which meant putting some color on the wall. And like he worked on that place for 2 years, buying furniture for himself, for my money, for my income, which he was controlling. But it was very, like it was... every time that something new was put on my to-do list or my responsibilities, in the beginning, it was like a suggestion, perhaps you can do like this. But then it became like a demand, and the appreciation disappeared. And like in the last few years, I would dread coming home. Like I had this idea that perhaps, like, I still believed that I am partly responsible. Like I should be able to find a way to make it work. So I still had this belief that I didn't understand that he was doing it on purpose. So I thought that, well, he's struggling. He has some problems. Like obviously he is very immature, and like he has no insight into his own faults. And I even knew that he had a narcissistic personality disorder. Probably he has no diagnosis. I knew that since 2017, so I've read all about it. I read books and articles and anything I could find. And I started with reading what was written, like in my, I have done my rotations at the psychiatric units, and read about the personality disorders. And then I got the Swedish Psychiatry Association. They have like a little book specifically about the different personality disorders. And I started there and just reading about it, but then expanded and tried to find a solution. So I understood that he had a disorder, but I thought that, well, it's sort of like autism. Like he's not able to empathize, or like it's something that we have to work around. But I didn't understand how much he was doing on purpose, and that dawned on me later. But like the on purpose part was what made me eventually get so angry that I left. So I left after 21 years with this man. And at that time I was really affected by gaslighting. And gaslighting means like the process, a person who is highly manipulative, like my ex-husband was. It's sort of like being in a cult. There has been like several people has drawn this parallel between the narcissistic relationship and the being in a cult. And among them is Mark Vincenti, I think. He was in the Nexium cult. And he did a very good documentary on that cult and about the dynamics, explaining it. And he also has a YouTube channel talking about this connection between the cult psychology and narcissistic personality disorder. But I do recommend that you check out that documentary about the Nexium cult. He was also struggling with gaslighting afterwards, like understanding what was real. And but after 21 years, so I left because I understood that he was hurting me on purpose, and he was purposefully making things hard for me, and he was actually enjoying it, which is horrible. And if you've been in this situation, like I really had exhausted myself for years to try to help this man and putting his well-being or my concern for him over myself. So I was trying to support him, create time and space for him to work himself out of the situation that he was in with the unemployment. And I had worked on I had worked on a lot of my own weaknesses and that abandonment fear that I spoke about earlier. I had worked on that. I had changed the way that we interacted so that I would not, like if he tried to start an argument or he was angry, then I would very calmly say that, well, let's talk about this later when you're calmer. Or how about you, how about you take a walk? I know that helps you. I would love to talk to you later, but I don't want us to argue, and I know that you don't want that either. Or I love you, but I don't want to fight, so I'm going to bed now. Let's talk tomorrow or something. So and that took a lot of mental effort. And that was something I did to give him the opportunity to give him the space to work on himself, sort of. And also because when you are arguing with someone and they are giving it back to you, it's hard to see your own part. You get really worked up. So I saw it as like I was trying to remove the the vision I had in my head was actually like if you are a bullfighter and you have this red blanket, the red to the bull, then it will attack. So I thought that I am removing this red blanket so that there will be nothing. Like if I am very calm and I'm not escalating, then there will be nothing for him to get worked up about. And I was working full time to get our economy in order because he was complaining about like I thought that our finances was one of the problems behind why our relationship had turned, like why it had changed so much after the kids came. So I thought that, well, before we did have a better economy because he was working, and we were able to do things like and then we really went through years of struggling financially, and he blamed like his tenseness or worry about like, well, I'm worried about the economy because it's all on my shoulders and things like that. So I took it upon myself to fix the situation from all the angles, like the problems in our interactions. I created time for him to work on his midlife crisis. I took the responsibility for the kids. And I turned our economy around, sort of. Made a decent income, and I let him control my finances, or let him. I saw it as letting him, but he also demanded that, well, I need control over it because you don't know how to handle finances, and he would sort of return to this. So that was part of the gaslighting in my case. He made me believe that I always made poor financial decisions that was grounded in impulsivity. So whenever, like I have this love for books, so I could order or buy books from the bookstore when there was a book that I was really interested in, and like, how many books can you buy? It wasn't that many, but he would be really angry and complain, like, you didn't ask me. You can't just buy things. And then I would ask and then say, no, well, we don't have any money to buy any books. But at this point I was working. So, and in the end, he even refused that I buy any clothes because I'd gained some weight. At that point, it wasn't like this much. But he told me that, well, that's why you should never gain weight. And he was blaming my character and actually trying to control what I was eating even. So I had a lot of guilt, and I was blaming myself, and I thought that, like, even after I saw that he's actually enjoying creating difficulties, like and this was sort of the sadistic part of him. I realized that he is creating fights on purpose, and he is creating difficulty for me on purpose. And he was enjoying that. So that made me feel used and stupid, like that I had been tricked by him. But I was also feeling confused because all those years of him manipulating me and getting into my psyche and making me believe, like, I had a skewed image of how I should act in a relationship, or what I could expect of others when it comes to, like, how they would treat me. So that was still there. Like, I was still blaming myself, and but it was mixed. Like, I was completely confused. And also 3 months before I left, there was this incident where he once again well, he came after me with a knife. And was going to end my life. I believe he would. I believe that he was going to do that, but I was able to or I was able to. I can't go into that. I'm sorry, but it didn't happen. Like, I'm here, so. But or after that incident, so after years of trying to make it work, working on myself, I'm thinking that I'm helping him. Like, I will just, if we just push through this crisis, if we just go through the pandemic, if I just get my license, if we just get the other apartment in order, like, things will be better if I just wait a bit. And then they didn't become better. They became worse and worse and worse. And I was so exhausted. I had been battling with burnout symptoms for years. So I would, like the last few hours in the day, I would be really like struggling just to get through the rest of the shore so that I could go to bed. And then I would read my kids a bedtime story. I always did that. I'd done that since they were quite small. And as I was reading the story, I was so tired, like my ears were ringing and I couldn't stand like any noise. So I put in earplugs, like this little silicone earplugs. And then I asked them, so Mommy is really tired, but I want to read this story. But if you want, like, you listen, and if you want to say something, you have to use a small voice. Because if they spoke loudly, then I would get, like, my concentration would get disturbed, and I would, like, I was struggling with this brain fog. So if you have been there, then you know this overwhelming, like, tiredness, and you can even become angry, like when you hear a noise. It's almost painful, like it echoes in the head. So that was my every evening. I was really, like, struggling, and then I would lay in bed, and that's usually like usually when we were laying down. I don't know if, like, was it on purpose? It was so dumb, but when we were laying down, I was finished with the story and they were coming to rest. Then my husband would come home, and then he would come in and hug them, and then they would get awake again, and I had to calm them down again. And then usually, like, after everything was finished finally and the kids were sleeping, then I would have this, like, I would think that, well, should I go up? If I'm just laying here, then there will be no working on my marriage. Like, I should go up. So I had this feeling that, well, I'm partly responsible for him being so, like, how is things going to be better if I never go up and talk to him? But then I would, like, my body was sort of resisting that. So I think that my body was protecting me. So I would usually go to sleep and forget about everything. So it was an escape to go to sleep, because that's what I wanted to. Like, I was at work, it felt quite good. Like, that was a safe place. And and I did get some appreciation. But then I went home and there was a lot of work. Like I did laundry, fix the food, the dishes, and all the things with the kids. And there were like not that many hours after work. And then I would go to sleep. And if I woke up, he wouldn't speak. Like he would be on his phone and he wouldn't talk to me or be irritated or ask me to do something or criticize me or start an argument. So, and then this happened with the physical abuse where he almost ended my life. And then I was like unable to process it. So for 3 months, I was feeling that I need to leave, but I can't leave because he will harm us. So I was at this point, well, I can't go into every, like it's such a long story. It's years and years of things happening, but I was at this point sure that he will harm me and probably the kids as well if I try to leave. So I was sort of stuck in, didn't know what to do. And I didn't talk to anyone about this. I talked to one friend about that we were having some problems. But I didn't mention everything. Like I was not going into the details, and I was not absolutely not telling anything about the worst parts, like the most horrible or hurtful parts. And part of it was, there were several reasons. So I had friends and I had family, but I was feeling distant from them because I was always working. And when I wasn't working, I was responsible for taking care of the kids. So that meant that very, very rarely did I have an adult conversation with a friend or a family member. And like the energy to arrange or to even attend any events. That's one part. So the isolation and the exhaustion. And then I didn't have words to describe what was happening. I was so confused by all the manipulation, and I would be for a long time afterwards. And then it was a fear, like, what will he do? What is he capable of doing? And he was acting more and more disturbed. So there were several scary incidents, and he was acting like different. He was completely different at this point from the man that I met. Like the nice guy was completely gone. So I wasn't sure what he was capable of, but I suspected that I hadn't seen the worst. So it was fear. And what more? I felt ashamed of being in this situation. I had kept the appearance up for years. So even when someone would comment that, well, he is treating you poorly, he's not helping you enough, or like, how come he travels by himself, I would say something that, like, in his defense. And I wouldn't not lie, but for example, with the solo travels, I would say, well, he needs some alone time, and I also enjoy having some time by myself, and I did enjoy that. It was very, very nice to not have him at home. But I had been, I don't know if they believed that, but at least they didn't know how horrible it was. And at work, I felt capable, and I felt like a smart woman, and I had a job that was respected. And then I went home, and I was being put down, yelled at, called. Well, he didn't call me the bad names, but he said bad things about me. So I guess that it can be a bit different, like how the abusers express themselves. But he didn't call me and like, you're an idiot, but he did say that, well, you don't know that much, or like, you don't even know the basics. I need to help you. You can't manage on your own, and like you're he was criticizing a lot of the things that I was doing, and you're lazy, and you're always sleeping, and gaining weight. So well, he was criticizing everything. I can't. It was like from how I was looking to what I was doing to the words I was using. So you shouldn't use that word, or you're not raising the kids well. He was even like criticizing how I went on the bus. Yeah, that's a story for another time. He wasn't following us, but he watched us from the window and thought that I was standing in line at the bus stop in the wrong way. But anyway, at work, I felt competent, and then I went home and was being treated like a slave. And I had been hiding that side, or excusing it, or hoping that it would go away, like hoping that things would work out. And then when I lost that hope, I was still, well, it was a fear, but it was a big thing that kept me from opening up for a long time. Like, what will people think that I'm a doctor, and I'm intelligent, and I give advice to other people, my patients and my colleagues value my opinion. They ask me what I think about things, and then I would admit to them what was going on, or what had been going on in my relationship, that I had for such a long time been abused and put down, and lived in such an unequal relationship. When I was a modern, educated woman, I did feel that, well, that admitting that would mean like admitting that I'm dumb. It felt like I was admitting that I'm an idiot. Because when you look at things like as they were in the end, when they were so unjust and he was treating me so badly. Like, why would I accept that? Well, I didn't accept that, but I was being trained to accept that during 21 years. So, but I didn't have that I didn't have that understanding of what had happened. I didn't understand, like, how could I have gotten to this point, and I even had troubles understanding, like, what is the truth, what has happened to me, why has it happened, and even to put, like, eventually it took me 6 months of dealing with, like, I left and then I told my family and my friends that I am separating from my husband, and he has not been treating me properly, and he has lied about some things, but I didn't tell them that he had almost ended my life, and I didn't tell them about like how horrible parts of the abuse had been, because I will still like, even though I realized that he has abused me, and treated, like, he has done it on purpose. It wasn't just that he had problems dealing with his anger, or it wasn't just a crisis or a depression. It was done on purpose, and I, even though I understood that, I still believe that, well, he is a good father. And how could I believe that? Well, he repeatedly said that. He repeatedly said it. He talked about it, like I was, or let's, I have to change it a bit. I knew that he wasn't a good parent, but I thought that he wanted to be a good father, but he had problems, like, dealing with the kids. But at least he hugged them every night. That's when he came in to disturb us when they were almost asleep. And he was saying to them, like, I love you, remember that daddy always will love you. And he was very, very sweet with them. Not always, but mainly. And I thought that the bad treatment is only me. So even after we separated and I went low contact, so I insisted that we only communicate by email. And I even told him that, like, I will, if you show up here, I will call the police. So I was very afraid of what he would do. But at the same time, I didn't want to face that reality. Like, I was aware of the danger, and he was contacting me and like not listening and sending hundreds of mails and text. Like, I had to block him on the text function as well. But then there were hundreds of emails, and he was calling my friends and my parents. But I was hoping that he will have to accept that I want a separation, and then at least he can interact with the kids. I thought that would be a good thing. So I did, and that's also one of the reasons why I didn't want to tell anyone, because I didn't want my kids to hear anyone talk about us, or I didn't want to badmouth their father, because I was still hoping that, well, when he comes down and accept the separation, he could at least be their father. Like probably not as that present, like I will continue to be raising them like a single mom, but he will talk to them sometimes and see them sometimes, and I don't want to talk badly about their father, even though I don't want to be married to him. But I was also very confused about what had happened, and I was actually like not at this point I was not doing well mentally at all. I was still working full time, and then I would go home like well, I guess I have to mention it briefly so that you understand, but I left and then I kicked him out of that department that I rented, and he moved to the other town, to the other apartment that we owned and that I had a loan in my name for. But in that home, living in that apartment rental place, I did not feel safe, and I was afraid that he would show up because he had, as I said, tried to end my life 3 months before the separation, and I was afraid that he would follow up, like he would, as a revenge for me abandoning him, because he saw it as me abandoning him. And I also struggled with guilt, actually, for abandoning him, a grown man. And I see that there are some people listening. If you have any questions, you're welcome to write it in the chat. So I was feeling this loyalty still to him. Like I didn't want to. And that was something that started very early on in our relationship, that he was very private. I thought that he was a private guy, so he didn't want people to talk about him or us. And he often repeated, like, even with the good things, like, so we're taking this trip together, or he would buy me some gift, and then he would say, well, don't tell your friends that you got this. And it would be some, like, once he bought me this amazing jewelry when we celebrated 5 years together in Venice. So you can't judge me for thinking that he was a good guy. He could be very romantic and very, very charming. He bought me this necklace with, it was gold, and then it was pearls, and then it was some they're not called earrings. Ear jewelry, also with the golden pearls, and also like a bracelet and a ring with. So it was very pretty, and but he did things like that, and he would often say, like, don't show it to your friends, or like they will get jealous, or you shouldn't talk about the things that we do together, or if we had an argument, and that was very rare in the like first few years, like before the kids, it was rare that we argued. But afterwards he would question me, so did you tell anyone about us arguing? Or if we had had an argument and I had met someone like my family, then he would question me about, what did you talk about? Like, did you talk about me, or what? So, and he would repeat this, so you should never tell anyone what is going on in our relationship or in our family. So they will, if you are telling them that we're arguing, then they will be happy that we are having a fallout because they are jealous of us and they want us to separate. And so that was something that I had sort of taken on from all those years together, that I never spoke about our relationship. So I felt this loyalty that not to share anything like our private life with anyone. And well, what eventually happened that made me have to open up was that the stalking just escalated. So it didn't calm down, and like he showed up and left things outside of the apartment. And if like after I then kicked him out of this rental place. In Sweden, we have like 3 months when you want to end the contract, it takes 3 months. So I applied for another apartment, like with another landlord, and I got that contract, and then I ended my contract for the first apartment. But that's the usual time span. It takes 3 months before you're allowed into the new apartment, because the other rental guest, the person that is having the contract is still living there. So I had to live in this apartment for 3 months where we had lived together. And I was not sure if he has he copied the keys? And I would, like, every night I would sleep, and then I would put the door handle, a chair underneath the door handle, so that if he would try to get in, and he was on the other side of our country, but I was still very afraid that he would show up and try to sneak in, like in the middle of the night. So I would put a chair under the door handle, and I sort of, during this period, I stuffed everything in. Like, I was trying to keep it together. I didn't want to change my kids, like their everyday routines. I was also feeling like I have responsibility towards my patients and my work, and I have to come, like I need to go there. No one else will fill like my responsibilities. We were a small primary care center, so 7,000 patients listed there, and 4 doctors. So like I had my patients that I was taking care of, and I felt responsible to uphold that. And again, I felt a bit trapped, like I didn't really see how I could change my situation. I was still working full time, taking care of the kids. Now my husband was living on the other side of the country, but he was living in an apartment that I was still paying for. So he was still trapping me financially. And it was a high, like that apartment cost, like $1,200, I think it would be, or a bit more, depending on the exchange rate, every month. And he refused. Like, I hoped that, well, now he has to get a job. He has to stand on his own feet. But he wouldn't. And then when I told him, like, I can't continue to pay for this, and he would send me images of oatmeal, like, look, for your sake, I am eating oatmeal because I have no money. So will you really kick your the father of your kids to the curb. I will become homeless. And that was also a barrier. So I was sort of stuck in the situation, and I was burned out. And always, like, I was always busy at work, and then when I got home, I couldn't even think clearly. I was so tired, and I still had a very difficult time understanding, making sense of everything that had happened. So I was sort of living in that, but I was taking small steps to trying to free myself, getting another apartment so that I would feel a bit safer, and that one had a security door. Like a security door is a door that you can't lift off from the outside, so it doesn't have the hinges visible. And then it has the door eye. Is that called that in English? Well, it's a little hole that you can peek to see who is on the other side of the door. And mainly, like, it was an apartment that, and it was also like not on the ground floor. So the first place was at the ground floor. So anyone could actually walk up to the windows and peek in, and that's like not recommended if you are dealing with a stalker. But this was on the first floor in an apartment complex, and he didn't know the place. Like, he didn't know what the apartment looked like inside. And what more? Well, I limited communication a bit, and I had, because there were hundreds of mail being sent to me, I just told him through my father, like I had asked my father to send an email informing him that, well, Emma, like, you are mail bombing her, you are terrorizing her with all your messages, and from now on you have to contact me, and you only contact me when it's about the kids and making an arrangement for you to see them. And you can see them anytime you want when they're like off school, or but it will not be, like, it would not be in my home. It had to be in a public place, and one of my parents accompanied me. So I did take some steps to protect myself, and eventually I got a lawyer to help me evict him from this apartment to be able to sell it. And he resisted me on all, he tried to resist me, and I was constantly afraid, because in my mind he was this big and powerful, smart, like it felt like he always saw through me, like he knew me very, very well. He would see like small things that I missed, that I hadn't noticed, and then he would point them out. Like, it felt like he was, I had the feeling that he was cunning and smart and powerful. Like, I had never been able to, I hadn't tried for real, but I hadn't ever been able to defeat him, you can say. He always out-silenced me with when he was like giving me the silent treatment. It was always me who had to go to him, and it felt like I was always on the defensive. So I was always explaining or defending or trying to make changes, and he was the one that was demanding, or like the judge who would say that if something was good enough, or he would be in a good mood if it was, and then he would be in a bad mood. So I felt that like he had more power than I had. But that changed. So slowly I started to, what I wanted was not to have power over him. I just wanted to regain autonomy, like over my own life. So stepwise, the economy, like my peace of mind, like my home, I changed the home so I would be safe there. But he tried in all the ways that he could to get to me, like he would. And this became very obvious when he was emailing and when I wasn't talking to him directly. So, and often I got so stressed out from reading the mails. So I often did not read them immediately, but it became apparent that he was trying to manipulate me and pushing the button. Like when the oatmeal worked, for example, he sent me the photo of the oatmeal and look what you're making me do. You're making me eat oatmeal. Then I backed off with the sale. And then he became like, I noticed that when I try to treat him decently or give him another chance, for example, back off with the trying to evict him, then he would get arrogant and bossy. So he tried to regain control over me. So that became more apparent, but he intensified the stalking and the threats. And he also, like, from at least pretending to be interested in being a father, that disappeared. So he met the kids 3 times, only 3 times after the separation. And the longest, perhaps it was an hour the first time. They were at a funland and I had paid for the year card so they could get in for free. But he called me and I was surprised that so I unblocked him just for the day. Yeah, he called me from our son's phone. Now he had the sound call. Well, I don't need to share all the details, but like the last time, it was, I think, 20 minutes or half an hour, and then he called and I sent my mother in. I was in contact with her then to pick the kids up, because when we dropped them off, my husband tried to hug me and he wanted to talk. And when I didn't come in to pick the kids up, he made a huge scene and cried and made the children cry. And he told our daughter, I didn't know that, why she was crying so hard, but he had told her that if mommy doesn't allow daddy to move back in, then you will never, ever see me again. So she was crying, hysterical, and she wasn't understanding like why everything was like, the kids had seen part of his mistreatment and anger. Like in the end, he had his anger outbursts, even when they were awake, or like we had to actually leave our home a few times because he got angry. And I said, well, we are leaving here, and you can't yell or scream, especially when the kids are awake. So they had seen a bit, and at least my son understood, and he had even asked me, and he had asked his father, like, why are you talking so mean to mommy? But So he did it. That was true. Like, he didn't ask to see them after that, but he called them and he tried to manipulate the kids. So when he couldn't get to me, then he tried to manipulate them because he had bought them each a phone from my money, but he didn't mention to the kids that it was my money. They got the phone from daddy. So he would call the kids and then he would ask them, like when he couldn't get to me, he would ask them to go and tell mommy this, or he would try to make them film the apartment to see like how it looked and things. And I had to interrupt these, like I had to take some actions there. So when I heard that the call went in this direction and it became like increasingly, he even called our son once and yelled and he was angry. Then I would go in and I would say, well, now you're talking to our son, and if you will not behave, then you can't talk to the kids. Then I clicked the call. So, but this was increasing. So the stalking, the manipulation, involving the kids, and also threats. So eventually I had to tell the police. And this was very hard. So the first person I actually told about the separation was my father. So he didn't know what was going on, but I told him when we left the first day that can I stay with you because I can't go back home. But I didn't share exactly what was happening. But he knew that we were separating, and he helped me with like the email contact with my husband, so that so he understood that he was, and my father was a policeman, and he also is a lawyer, so he understood that he was not behaving right. And he actually commented. So I asked him, like, what do you think about me wanting to divorce? And he said, well, it's about time. So I think that he had seen that he acted selfish, and well, that he wasn't helping me and he wasn't working. So that those parts he had seen, but I didn't tell my father about the abuse. But eventually it got to a point where I was afraid to send my kids to school because my husband had said that he and his family will come to pick them up because they belong to our family. So we will pick them up even if you don't want it. So I was afraid to send my kids to school. And that was like, if I leave them at school, then how will I know if he would actually show up and try to pick them up? So I became so scared about because of his behavior and afraid of what he could do. So I called the police in the evening and I asked my sister to come over that day because I was actually afraid of being alone in the apartment. It had escalated to that. And I remember going into one of the bedrooms and calling not the emergency line. We have, like in Sweden, there is a line for the emergency. I guess it's the same as 911, but we also have another. So it's the non-emergency phone number to the police if you want to that can report your bike being stolen or something. It's not an emergency. But I called a non-emergency number, and I didn't really know what to expect, because this was the first time where I actually tried to put words on the situation. And I spoke to a female police on the phone, and I told her that I have been in a relationship with a man, with my husband for 21 years, and I mentioned the 2 episodes where he had tried to end my life. So I mentioned that I guess I was a bit incohesive. So I told her that I was scared of him and that I had separated, and I hoped that things would calm down. But they had not, and he was contacting me a lot, and he had been contacting my friends and my family, and now he was. And I also mentioned, because he had actually, he had verbally threatened me and the kids before I left. So I mentioned that, and I said that now he's saying that he will come and take the kids. And I was expecting her to tell me, well, you can come to the police station tomorrow or something. But she did not. So she said, well, where are you now? And I said, I'm home in my apartment, and my sister is here. And she said, well, we will send, there will be some police officer coming over to you later this evening. And it took a few hours. They weren't able to come immediately, and I wasn't expecting it either. But then these 3 policemen, it was 1 woman and 2 long, tall Swedish policemen. We went, at this point, the kids it was past their bedtime, so they were in their bedrooms. But I went into one of the bedrooms that there were no children, and told the policeman parts of what was going on, and I was mostly worried about the kids at this point. And I was playing them my husband had. It was stupid by him, but he recorded he sent me this voice messages. And he also sent them through email. So it was email. He recorded his voice, and some of them were very scary and threatening. So I played those, and then I showed them some evidence that I can't go into here. But I was still unable to. They took it very seriously. So they created a, what is that called, complaint, or they started a case. I don't know the police jargon in English. But I very quickly got in contact. I had to go for a few hearings, but I got in contact with the person, protective unit at the police, and This would eventually lead to me being able to get a protected identity, which just means that my address is kept secret, so no one can search for me online to know where I live. Yes, but when I went down to the police hearings, and I had a few in person and then a few on phone, I noticed that it was, well, first of all, it was very hard for me to speak about certain events because I had not processed them. So I had not worked through them and accepted them fully, and I was crying, trying to tell them about some of the events. But it was also very hard to tell what had happened. So I was jumping back and forth in the timeline, and I was still like trying to, well, tell them about, well, he did that, and that was, so he helped me with that, and well, he was at least a good father because he took the kids to Funland on Sundays. But I didn't mention that on Sundays I would stand in the kitchen all day cooking for the entire week, and he was unemployed, and that was the only few hours that he interacted with the kids, buying them, like getting them sugar high on my back. So yeah, he was using my card, my MasterCard. He had my cards, so he would use my money. But I couldn't explain, like I could remember or recall some details, but I couldn't put it in a narrative, like explain it properly. And I was still, like, even at this point, making excuses or not fully understanding how bad it was. Now that I have left that situation completely, and I live like in peace, me and my kids. And since I think about a month, I'm feeling that the old me with the old, I used to have a lot of energy, like before the last few years of that relationship I had. I felt like a Duracell battery, or I don't know, are the Duracell batteries even that good anymore? But in the old commercial, where they just go and go. So I used to have a lot of energy, and I lost that, and I lost my joy, and I was feeling tense, like in my own home. I was feeling tense when we lived together, and then afterwards, before I got help, and even after I had begun to speak about it, it was hard to open up to other people and to my friends and tell them. Like one friend I didn't tell until I just told her about the separation, and that he had been like not accepting it and trying to stop me. So, but I didn't talk about how he had treated me in the end of the relationship, because of shame, and also because I was focused on trying to survive, trying to get a new job, get a new apartment contract in another town, and trying to get my finances like working and trying to evict him from this apartment, that he refused to leave, and going into debt, and there were so many things going on, so I just had my focus on that. So slowly I started to open up a bit to. I had one friend that I opened up to some more, but not everything, and not telling her the worst, like the most horrific stories I didn't share. And then I spoke to 2 psychologists, but I found that they were not trauma educated, so they were just normal psychologists. And I mean, I guess it was a bit helpful because they were able to listen, and it was a safe space to share my story. But it felt like they did not get it. So one of them even said, like, listening to what I was saying, this is the worst story I've ever heard. So that's not something you want to hear from your psychologist. I think she meant it as being sympathetic with my situation. But when they have not dealt with this type of problem before, then like it didn't give me what I needed help with putting the narrative, like what had happened, why have I ended up here, and all the practical things I was dealing with. It was sort of like it didn't help me forward. And I also spoke to so the 2 psychologists, and then I spoke to what's that called in English? It's like a crime victim support person. They have this unit for crime victim support. So I spoke to her on the phone regularly and like updated her, and she told me like, well done for taking this step forward. And it is valuable to hear your own. It is part of the processing just to tell your story several times and just put it into words. So every time you do that, it helps you to connect some of the dots. Oh, sorry, I don't know how the sound is. This is the first time that I'm testing the live stream, and I had to do it on my computer. So I know that the video is a bit like not as clear as my usual videos, but I don't know how the sound is, and I think I bumped my teacup, so I'm sorry if you have some ear pain. I will put it on the paper from now on, so it won't make a sound. I get a bit dry in my throat from speaking for so long, but it's alive, so I can go on for longer. And I think there is at least 2 of you listening. And you're welcome to write if you have any comments or questions. I know that beginning to talk about your story, it is hard, and it can even be a barrier to just writing a comment on a video, or like here, and even if you're anonymous on a YouTube platform, to to actually put it in writing. I was abused, or this happened to me as well. So that can also be a barrier. So after having opened up slightly, like everyone noticed that we were getting the separation. And I did open up a bit about him not wanting to accept it and stalking me. And then eventually it went so bad that I had to call the police. And then that was the first time that I told them about anyone. Well, not really true. I had told my one friend about the violent incident with the knife. But but it was the first time that I opened up a bit more about the abuse and how scared I was of him and the threats that he had made to the police. And then I had to speak to several policemen about my story, and I was incohesive and had difficulties talking about it and difficulties making sense, because in my own mind it wasn't like when you go through trauma, the memories are not stored like normal memories, so they get fractured. When like they are not put in the proper like the time frame, and it is like they are stored as different images or different parts of memories. Like he said, like he did that, and you can focus, like the memory can sometimes focus in on details like his hand or what he said, or I was crying, or it is confusing memory. So I had to learn to tell the story, and that was difficult. I also used my journaling to start to write more, like write out the timeline, what had happened at what time, and write it back to myself and talk about it to this different people, to psychologists, the crime victim support person on the phone, and my friend, who I, at this time, I thought that she was one of my best friends. I told her some of it, not everything, because I didn't feel that she really got, like I felt that she was trying to be supportive, but she did not understand it. And I felt that she was like partly thinking that I had acted dumb, like in the way that she responded. I thought that, well, she didn't understand why I would put up with this and things like that. Then, because I had to move under the protected identity to get away from him, I now had to tell my boss that I was resigning from work. That was a big step, like telling my boss about what was going on. She was very supportive. Actually, she helped me a lot, like with advice, and we talked on she supported me for a long time after I left that job with like phone calls, and we talked. She had not gone through anything like this, but she had seen a lot in her work, so she understood it a bit better. But of course, this was my boss, so I didn't share any real details with her. But it was more focused on like, so how are you doing, and how are the kids, and my boss, she's also like, she's a GP, but she also is a child pediatrician. That's what it's called. So she knows a lot about child psychology, and she helped me and gave me advice on things. And then I had to, when I went through to interviews, I had to speak about like, and I have to mention that I have a protected identity because my ex-husband has threatened us and has been stalking us, and that is why we have to move. So I had to tell people on interviews, and I had interviews in a lot of different towns. And that is like the first time you do that, it is awkward, or I thought that it was awkward, but everyone accepted it, actually. And I mean, I am a bit privileged because I am a medical doctor, so they wanted to hire me because it is like not that easy to get medical doctors to hire. It is lack. Yeah, that's the word. So I am not sure if it would be like, probably depending on the person you are interacting with, it could happen that you meet some more questioning, or people not understanding, or someone might not want to hire. I don't know. I have not been in that situation. But I also had to tell, because of this protected identity thing, I had to tell, like, when I signed any contract, like on the rentals, apartment, or even the electricity contract, I had to tell them, well, I have this protected identity. And in Sweden, it sort of is equal to battered woman. So usually the women who live with the protected identity do this because they are leaving an abusive partner. So in the beginning, like, it was a barrier just to tell like a stranger on the phone about this, because I was afraid of what they would think about me. So I don't know if you recognize this feeling of being worried, like extremely worried about your image. I don't think that I am very worried about my image, but somehow it felt demeaning. It felt shameful. It was like admitting to something bad. Like, it felt like it was my fault for getting myself into that situation and not setting the proper boundaries. So I think that perhaps that judgment came from within myself. I was judging myself a lot. for like, and I was feeling guilty for uprooting my kids from the town that we lived in, and their friend, like we had to leave, and they couldn't keep in contact with their friends because no one should know where we were going. So even though I did not want this situation, and I was doing my best to arrange things as to the best of my abilities for them, I was feeling very guilty for, like, it was a guilt that was it's strange that we feel guilty for things that are outside of our control. And I'm very grateful that I have my kids, my two kids, whom I really love, and they wouldn't be here if I hadn't been in a relationship with exactly this man at exactly this time. So I can't regret that. But somehow I've always, like, from I was a child, and I think that this is like a remain of growing up with a narcissistic mother. I always felt responsible, and I was also a big sister, so took a lot of responsibility for my three younger siblings. Was a stand-in mother from a young age. So I had this belief about myself, like if someone is angry, then it's my fault. Because I was the scapegoat, I was responsible for everything. And I was being blamed if things were not going good, then it was my fault. So I sort of had this save the world complex, or when something, and my husband did the same thing to me. So he was actually very, very similar in his psychology to my mother, but he did the same thing. So he blamed me when things went wrong. Even if he caused them, it was still my fault, and he would argue or he would bring up arguments for why it was my fault. And even if those arguments were stupid or illogical, I would still feel responsible. So I would still have the feeling of, or I was, even if I didn't cause it, I should have prevented it or foreseen it, or I should fix it. So I felt responsible for a lot of things. And in this situation, I felt like I was failing my kids. And I also felt dumb for being in this situation where I had gotten myself abused and had to ask for help. Like, it was the first time in my life where I really couldn't manage everything. I was used to being very capable and being able to manage things, but now I couldn't fix things, and I even had to ask for help. So I had to ask some family members and friends to loan me money. to be able to sustain or like sustain the move and double rents and changing of workplace. And at this time I was also like put on sick leave from having to go to the doctor. So it was the first time in years, like the first time since I myself went to med school, that I had to see the doctor and tell them that like I am not doing well and I have been abused and stalked and threatened, and now I have to report. Like I had to tell this to the doctor, and that felt humiliating. Like first having to make an appointment. It was at another healthcare center, so I traveled a bit to get there because I didn't want anyone who knew me. So tell them about that, and it's like a routine that the social services get involved to make sure that the kids are doing okay. So I had to interact with them, and that means being questioned. So I felt a bit I felt vulnerable and like I was being scrutinized and that I was failing and that I couldn't keep everything together and that I had to ask for help. I had to ask the doctor and the police and my family and friends, and like the image or the view that I had on myself fell apart, and the view that I thought, or I don't know if other people's view of me fell apart, but at least they saw like I was not holding things together and I had to ask for help for the first time in my adult life. And I was like, struggling with the guilt, anxiety, with the effects of CPTSD that started to show up now. So I would have anxiety and stress symptoms and horrible nightmares. And they're actually, like the last few days have been good, but those nightmares have returned for me the last couple of weeks. And that is, I think it is because I have an upcoming trial the 7th of November. So I don't know if it's an unconscious thing, but it's horrible to not even be able to sleep properly. And that was my escape for years, as I shared a bit earlier in the live stream, that while in the relationship the last few years, I really started to love sleeping in the evening, like go to bed at the same times as my kids. And I think it was unconscious to avoid my husband. But yes, and then the next step of all this telling people about abuse has been when I started this channel. So it is 7 months and 4 days since I started. And it's not that I want, well, now I actually really enjoy having the YouTube channel, but in the beginning I started the channel because I was feeling so much pain, mentally, like I was going through a lot of existential pain, perhaps. I was forced to move a total of 4 times in 1 year because of the stalking. Had to leave 2 jobs. I was burned out, exhausted, trying to keep everything together as a mother, trying to balance, like trying to get the economy to work with all these double rents as I was moving, and we had to stay at hotels a few times. And like, even though I got help from, like the police were understanding, but well, not all of them. There was this one guy who I still hold a grudge against, but that's a topic for another video. But they didn't. Well, I have to. They did take it very, very seriously and say that I was in danger, but they were not sure if he had, like, if he would continue after we moved. And so I was, well, now I'm getting a bit confused, forgive me, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I had to pay for all the moves myself, so I didn't get any help with that. Of course, there is the option of going to the women's shelter, and I was offered to do that, but I did not want to. Like, if I could avoid it and manage on my own, I would rather do that. So well, I don't know. I have never been to a women's shelter, so, but I did not. I wanted my kids to have more of a normal existence, even with all these like moving. And I tried to keep our routines, and I even kept a bedtime story routine. I've been reading bedtime stories in hotel rooms, and for a few weeks we were in my brother's mobile home. But yeah. So the meals times and the bedtime stories, and most of all, I tried to keep calm for them. But the last move was really hard on me because I thought that we were safe. We had rebuilt, like we had, and how many months? 4 months in that place. So they had begun to get, have some friends, and things were feeling stable. And then again, he found us, so we had to move. And I was also at this point starting to having to look at my childhood. So I had sort of avoided that for a period, like it was too much to process. So my brain sort of, I was aware of it, but then I would shut it off. So I don't know if you recognize this, if you've been through trauma, and like the trauma brain with the CPTSD, it has this ability to put in things in boxes. So, and then you forget about it, and so it can just disappear in your mind, even though it's something very important. And I would have this mental, like this process where I would become aware of something, like I have to fix this thing. I don't know how to do it. Better not think about it. Whoop, and then it disappeared into the blackness. So, but eventually I had a mental space to start to look at my childhood a bit. And that led to a lot of pain and grief and more healing. And at this point, I had also seeked out another psychologist that was trauma-informed. And I had also, I went through three coaches on narcissistic abuse. And I perhaps won't say their names, but they were they are here. I found them online. let's say. And that was good. No, 3, no, 4 actually. 4 of them. It was more helpful to me than the psychologists, because like the theory, the psychological theory, I could read that. Like I had continued to read like about trauma, about CPTSD. I read the like some of the more famous books and worked through it myself, and I journaled, and so I could read that part. But what I needed was someone to to resonate with my story and to tell me that, well, I also been through that, and this is what happened to me, and like sort of, and hear their take on some of the things that were still confusing me, like from their lens of having gone through it and having talked to a lot of survivors to get their lens on like their interpretation. So that helped me. But anyway, so in this time where I had to make the last move, where he found us again after I've lived through several months of being afraid that he would, but hoping that, like, how could he? I have taken all the security measures, and yeah. So when this last move, I had, like, it was when I moved, I wasn't even sure if I would be able to pay the rent. And I had some problems with the moving. Like, it was horrible. It was freezing cold. It was minus 40 degrees Celsius where I was. And I think in English that would be, or in the US that would be minus 7 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was very, very cold when this happened. And I was feeling like very, very at one of my lowest points. And I was feeling a lot of emotional pain. And it sort of was, and also I was starting to feel anger about having to move again because they wouldn't allow me to be free. This led to me like making a decision, and it was actually while I was driving this moving van to the new town, I got the idea that perhaps I could start a YouTube channel and talk about it, because I know how difficult this has been for me. And there must be thousands of people out there who are going through similar, like they will be in different parts of the process. So in the relationship, all those years where I was struggling and suffering and being like completely exhausted, painfully tired, and still struggling with the anxiety and all the abuse, grief, and emotional pain from the things that he was doing to me. Or they want to leave and they can't, or they are in the process of leaving and it's dangerous, or they are leaving and like it's such a confusing and lonely and painful process. And then I thought that I'm at a point where I've lost everything. So I lost my reputation, and at this point I had at this point I did not have a job because I had been feeling so bad that I had not been able to start to work again after the previous move. So it was 4 months. Like I was in the beginning of interviewing for new positions, but I had not yet signed a contract. And I was like when the kids were at school, I was sleeping. So I was sleeping a lot in the night and then in the day, trying to struggling to function, and then having all these realizations about my whole life has been this narcissistic abuse. I have had to move away from friends or connections. Like no one knows me. I'm alone, like in the wild, in the rural part of Sweden. I don't know how I will. Yeah, but I could at least speak about this because I don't have anything to hold me back. And he won't be able. This time, I will move in such a way that he won't be able to find me. So I can't face any consequences from him. So I just decided that I'm in a position where I could speak about this, and that would give me some meaning. So that was just the idea for the channel, just to share my story. And still, I was a bit nervous, or a lot nervous, when I started the first video, but I comforted myself with, well, no one will watch, no one will probably watch it, like there will be zero views. But there was some views, and there was some appreciative comments, and some nice persons saying like, thank you for sharing, you were very brave. And so that even though it was scary to start to share my story on YouTube, it felt meaningful, and it felt that all the years of pain, because I was really, really suffering for many years, and all the grief and all the painful memories and the childhood things, and they will all have a purpose if I use it. If I use it with a purpose, like I could use it for this purpose, because this is something that and at this point I have had really started to understand it, like my own story. And I already knew, as I said, about narcissism, and I'd read a lot about it. And I spoke to all these psychologists and the trauma trained and the coaches. And I had my own story that I had now processed a bit more. So I felt that this is something that I have actually studied for years, and I have lived it for years, and I can use it. Like I have my own perspective and insights and lessons that I could use and share with other survivors who are also walking this, like the same path, or the bridge, the bridge from the like confusing state of oppression to a life in freedom. And I could hold up a light over the bridge to light the way. And I believe that it must be many lights. So to like to get the support from someone who has been there is invaluable. Yes, it is invaluable, but you might not have the money to pay for it. So I used a lot of money for the coaches and the psychologists. Well, some of them I got for free through the healthcare system here, but it costs a lot of money to get this support. And I have this dream about creating a space where it will not cost a lot of money to get support from another survivor. And I'm not yet sure how to do it. So I feel this channel is like, so far, this is just the start of what I dream of doing. And I'm only one mama, and I only have so much time. So I do work now for part-time as a doctor. So that is how I am supporting myself and my kids. And I am using, a lot of hours each week to planning the videos and filming them and editing and scripting. And I have also had I think that it's really an honor or a privilege for me to be able to support survivors. So, I'm trying to be present in the comment section, and I really enjoy it when you comment on the videos. And I've also interacted with some survivors who have reached out to me by email, and a few of them that I've been able to speak with on video calls. So I'm not a psychologist, or I don't have a coaching certificate, but you don't need that to be able to speak with another person and listen to their story, and to give them a bit of a objective perspective, some encouragement, or to share your own experience with what they are going through. So it's not a replacement for the protection that you might get from, or that you like in these situations, depending on what type, like how severe the abuse is in your situation. There are, and depending on which country you're in. So some countries, in some countries, you can't leave your husband if he is abusive. Like women don't have a right to divorce, or they don't have the ability to divorce and support themselves in some countries, and it's depending on your life situation. But in many of the industrial nations, then you have the option of getting help, and I think that you should get help, like even if it is uncomfortable to speak about the abuse, and to open up about what has been happening, and possibly having people see you in a different light. You are not there, like you're not supposed to live your life in that way. Like you're a pair. Like what I learned from all of this is that it wasn't that important, like what people thought about me or my image, or even if they think that I'm stupid. And I have gotten some comments from some mean people, or like people who are, I think, not really understanding this type of abuse and emotional abuse, I have gotten some unempathic comments on my videos. One of them was that I made a short video where I talked about how my husband would tell me about how other women were more beautiful than me, and then I got a comment that, well, he was right. And but, that like before I started the channel, I thought that it would affect me more, but I have become stronger from speaking about this and from being able to speak about this and integrating this part. I liked before when it was a secret, and when I did not want people to know this about me, I was not accepting that part of my story. So when I was able to accept that, yes, I went through abuse for an abusive relationship for 21 years, and I almost didn't make it out. And like when I was able to accept that, and when I was able to talk about what happened and what was painful, and admit that I did not know, like I did not understand certain parts, and admit that, well, I still have work to do, then it didn't hold any power over me. Like if I am able to accept it, then it's not shameful, and that has made me stronger. So now I don't feel any resistance to sharing my story, but I share it with people in my surroundings very, very carefully, because they don't need to know this. Like it's a need to know basis. I think that's what it's called. So my boss knows, and my supervisor, because I do have when you're working as a doctor before you are a specialist, even if you are licensed, then you have the right to supervisor. And that means that not that they are following you around and supervising you, but that you're able to go to them when you have I have a time every week where we sit down and I go through my most complicated cases and get advice. So that's what it means. But that person knows about the situation. But otherwise, I'm not telling people because of safety reasons. And probably, well, I'm hoping that no one I know will find me online, but I mean, if they do, then so be it. So be it, because it is so important that someone speaks about this. And I do feel that perhaps I was meant to go through all the things that happened. I feel that it was meant to play out in that way, because God was using, like he is going to use me for something. Like it doesn't have to be a big thing for me. Like it could be a big thing when I'm helping one person. That could be a really, really big thing. It doesn't have to do with fame or money or acknowledgements. But I think that sometimes, like on social media, we're getting blind on the numbers. I'm a small, like my channel is a small channel, but there is more than 600 people who have subscribed, and that means that they have clicked that. Well, I'm interested in seeing what this lady is going to put out, so perhaps. And 600 people is a lot. Like, I don't know where you work or if you go to school, how many people are there in that place, like in your work or in your school? Is it 600 people? That's a lot of people, and just one person, if you are able to help them move from oppression, like from the place where I was 2 years ago, like looking back, or now when I have left, I understand how restricted I was, like even in my mind, what I was able to think, because I was so overworked and confused and manipulated, and I had been entrained. So even when I started to understand like, it's not my responsibility to always be working and fixing everything, and my husband is being mean and he's criticizing me, and that's on him, like that's his problem. But still I couldn't prevent myself from following the program. Like when he walked in the door, I would have to force myself to sit down and try to look relaxed, like leaning back a bit and trying to look relaxed, because my instinct was to stand up and start to work, like fix something. Is everything in order? Perhaps I could fix something else. Or like, I mean, I wasn't happy, and I was just living through the days, and I was even counting the years, like, okay, so who will die first, me or him? And well, perhaps if I keep really healthy, then I will outlive him and have a few good years. So I was like, life was no longer life. It was a prison. Like, it was, well, if you are in the prison, at least you have, like, I don't know, depending on your cellmate. So perhaps he's a psychopath. But like, if you're in solitary isolation, then at least you get some peace of mind. I felt, I don't know, perhaps that's a horrible comparison, but I don't think so. Like, it was worse than I have not been to prison, so I can't compare. But it was horrible. So after I left, and especially like since this spring of 2025, I started to feel joyful, and like when the flowers came up, I was happy. When I went to work, I was happy. I started to feel happy, and I hadn't felt that in a long time. Like genuinely just happy. I had felt like peaceful or grateful that time, but it was something different, like a joy, joy. And that started to show up more and more, and I was discovering my creativity again. I don't know, perhaps you noticed, but sometimes I do this thumbnails for the videos where it shows a bit. And I started to knit. So this is just one of the, this something that I really started to do again, and learn different patterns, and being happy and looking forward. And I started to dream again. I didn't notice that, but like all of my dreams or goals, it just had to do with being like, if this happens, then things will be fine between, like in my marriage, and things will be fine. But what that meant was actually that, and then he won't abuse me. So my goals was to get away from the abuse, but I didn't understand that. I thought that my goal is to fix the relationship so that we can, like, things will be fine. But just helping one person move from that confused, oppressed state to a place where they are free and able to have a real life, and able to, if they want, or if they want and need to break the cycle, if they are living in a generational toxic cycle, then break that for their kids. If I would be able to help one person do that transition, that is a big thing. So that's what I mean with, I think that there was a purpose with me going through all of those years of pain and abuse, to be able to do this work. So, and I'm excited to see what happens with the channel, and how much I am able to do. And it is also, well, if you, I think that you are a few of you listening. If you have questions, or if you are struggling with things, I do answer comments every day. I try to, like, so far I have been able to do that. There are still not that many subscribers. I do answer emails. If you want to question something more in private, you will find the email address. Put them in most of the videos, but on the channel homepage, like the about page. And as I said, I have been talking more intensely with a few women. So it is a time, like, for me, it's more a question of time, how much time I will be able to dedicate to this work. Because so far, like, I'm not making any money from the channel. It's something that I'm trying to do. What is it called? Pro bono, but I would like to expand it, but I'm not sure how to do it. My dream would be that this would be a place where survivors could come and get that support that you pay. Like, if you go to a coach on narcissistic abuse, if you find one on YouTube, it will cost you at least $100 an hour. So that's what I paid, or more, and that's expensive. And yes, I think that they have to do that because they are actually dedicated, like, that is their work. So I don't mean that these like the people who are creating the content and doing these coaching sessions, I don't mean that that's wrong. I think that many of them are doing a beautiful work, and they are very dedicated to helping. And that's the way, like, the model that they have to use, because they have to make a living. So that's not what I mean. But I want to create something different. So there is a gap. This is so common with the narcissistic abuse, with the manipulative relationships, and it is great it is great that there are a lot of channels and that there are a lot of coaches. But yeah, for those who are able to pay for that, that is a great option. But how about all of those who are not able to pay, or who are stuck in a like they are economically controlled by their abuser? So how would they get support? They can't use money for this. So that's the gap that I would love to fill. And I'm not really sure. Like so far, I think that I have managed to help the people who have contacted me. And I will continue to do it to the best of my ability. But I'm still thinking about how could that system be built so that it could be available for everyone. I don't know, but if you have some ideas, I would really love it if you share them. So I have seen I try to not look at the number, but I've seen that there are a few of you coming in and going. So I'm happy that you're here and listening to me. In Sweden, it's almost midnight, so it was a bit late for me. And but this was a good time because my kids are asleep, and I was hoping to perhaps, because I was just doing the live stream out of the blue, but I was thinking that perhaps someone who, some survivor or someone who is interested in this topic would find me and tune in for a while. So I think that I'm not sure. I'm still trying it out. As I said, this is my first live stream. I would like to incorporate it regularly, but it would have to wait to come on schedule. I think I will continue to do a few non-planned for now, because I'm still working on it. I don't know if you follow my channel, then I have this. I've started to post on a schedule now. Well, because I want the content to be helpful, and I do give a lot of thought to what should I cover next, and what insight could be helpful, and how could the videos connect best to, because the viewers who are returning, they need, it needs to be both covering the basics for the newbies. I don't know is that a condescending word? I don't know. But it also needs to be helpful for the ones that are like the long-term followers, or people who know a lot about narcissistic abuse. So I'm trying to make the videos simple but deep. So it should explain the basics so that it's easy to understand, but also cover something more. So it's interesting, and also interesting for me because I get to brainstorm these topics. But I am trying to work on keeping a schedule for the videos. So I already have, for example, for next week, I already have the topics planned out. And usually I do a community post on Sunday presenting the topics. So you will see it then. But I already am working on the scripts, and so because I don't want to, I'm doing it stepwise. So I'm still working on trying to get all that to work, and to keep that schedule and plan and get it to work with my everyday. And then I would love to do these live streams now and then. But for now, it will continue to be spontaneous. I thought it was quite fun to chat with you, even though there was no interaction in the live comments. I have not checked the other comment section, but I think that there might be some of you listening in or tuning in afterwards later. So yeah, I think I have to end it now because it is getting late and I'm feeling like I'm losing my red thread a bit and starting to not make sense anymore. So I think it's time for me to go to bed. Okay, I wish you, depending on where you are in the world, perhaps it's afternoon or evening where you are. Thank you for listening, and this will be the end of this live stream. Bye.